In our last conversation, we talked about sleep. We talked about dopamine. We talked about what happens to your brain when you spend 3 hours watching strangers react to other strangers reacting to food videos. And we laid out a plan to detox your attention system, to repair the damage, to get you back to baseline. But here's the thing. Baseline isn't the goal. Baseline is just where you stop bleeding. This week, we're talking about something different. We're not fixing damage anymore. We're building weapons. Because there's a version of you that doesn't just survive Monday. There's a version of you that walks into Monday like it owes you money. And that version of you, they have something most people will never develop, something neuroscientists have a term for, something CEOs, elite athletes, and the kind of people who write frighteningly productive books while somehow also raising children and speaking 3 languages all share. It's called deep work capacity. And today, we're going to take it apart, understand exactly how it works in your brain, and build a blueprint for getting more of it. Let's start with a confession. Your brain does not want to focus. I don't mean this as an insult. I mean it literally, biologically, in the same way your brain doesn't want to eat salad when there's pizza in the room. Distraction is not a character flaw. It's a feature that evolution spent about 300,000 years optimizing. Here's why. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain directly behind your forehead, the part responsible for planning, decision-making, and what researchers call executive functioning, is the most expensive piece of real estate in your skull. It is hungry. It consumes a disproportionate amount of glucose and oxygen. And the ancient threat-detecting parts of your brain know this. So when you try to sit down and do hard cognitive work, your brain's older systems essentially throw a small internal tantrum. They start noticing things, a noise outside, a notification, the sudden burning need to know what year that actor was born. Your default mode network, the brain system that activates when you're not focused on any specific task, lights up like a pinball machine and starts generating mental noise. This is not weakness. This is your ancient hardware running a perfectly rational cost-benefit calculation. The question is, how do you override it? The answer, it turns out, is not willpower. And this is where most productivity advice falls apart completely. Because willpower is a terrible strategy. Researchers at Florida State University, led by Roy Baumeister, ran a now famous series of experiments in the late 1990s. They sat participants in front of 2 things, a bowl of freshly baked chocolate chip cookies and a bowl of radishes. They told one group to eat only the radishes and resist the cookies. Then they gave both groups a series of insoluble puzzles and measured how long they persisted. The radish group, the people who had spent their willpower resisting cookies, gave up significantly faster. The conclusion: self-control draws from a limited resource. Every time you force yourself not to check your phone, you're spending the same cognitive currency you need to think deeply. You can't white-knuckle your way through 4 hours of focused work if you've burned your mental budget fighting notifications all morning. Which is why the CEO you're imagining, the one with the legendary focus, the one who seems to operate in a different gear, is not more disciplined than you. They've simply engineered their environment so that discipline is barely required at all. Tim Cook starts his day at 3:45 in the morning, not because he enjoys suffering, but because there are 0 demands on his attention at 3:45 in the morning. The world hasn't started yet. His phone isn't melting. No one is expecting anything. He has manufactured, quite deliberately, a pocket of 0 friction cognitive space. That's not a morning person superpower, that's a design decision. And you can make design decisions too. Now here's where the neuroscience gets genuinely interesting. When you do manage to reach a state of deep, sustained focus, what psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi famously called flow, your brain undergoes a measurable transformation.
activity in your prefrontal cortex actually decreases in a process called transient hypofrontality. Read that again because it's counterintuitive. During peak performance, the part of your brain associated with self-monitoring, doubt, and social self-consciousness goes quiet. The inner critic gets put in a room and the door clicks shut. You stop narrating your own performance and start doing the performance. Researchers have observed this in jazz musicians improvising, in surgeons operating under pressure, in programmers who've disappeared into a complex problem and look up to discover it's somehow become dark outside. This is the state your brain is capable of reaching. This is what focus like a CEO actually means at the neurological level. Not more stress, not harder straining, but a kind of clean, frictionless cognitive engagement where the noise drops away and the signal comes through clear. The problem is that you can't force your way into this state. You have to create the conditions for it. And that requires understanding the one variable most productivity advice completely ignores, which is time. Not how much time you have, but which time you use.
Your brain is not the same brain at 9 a.m. that it is at 3 p.m. I know that sounds obvious when you say it out loud, but watch how many people schedule their most demanding cognitive work for whenever there happens to be a gap in their calendar. A Tuesday afternoon slot that opened up because someone canceled. A Sunday evening block squeezed in after the chaos settles. Random, reactive, completely indifferent to the actual biology of when their brain is capable of performing. This is like trying to catch a wave by showing up to the beach at a random time and just standing there. Waves follow patterns. So does your brain. In the 1980s, a German psychologist named Till Ronberg began cataloging something he called Chronotype, the natural timing preference that is essentially hardwired into your circadian biology. You've probably heard the popular version of this, morning larks versus night owls. But Ronberg's data, collected from hundreds of thousands of people across decades, revealed something more precise and more humbling. Your peak cognitive window, the 2 to 4 hour period when your prefrontal cortex is running at maximum capacity, when your working memory is sharpest, when your ability to hold complex ideas in mind simultaneously is at its highest, occurs at a very specific and largely predictable time of day. And it is determined primarily by genetics. For roughly 75% of people, this window falls in the mid to late morning. For true night owls, it shifts significantly later. And here's the cruel irony. Most standard work and school schedules are completely misaligned with the chronotype of a significant portion of the population. Teenagers, whose chronotypes shift dramatically toward later timing during puberty, are routinely asked to perform their highest-stakes academic work at the exact biological moment their brains are least capable of it. But we're not here to litigate school start times. We're here to give you a practical tool. The tool is this: protect your peak window like it's the most valuable meeting of your day. Because it is. Whatever your natural peak is, and you probably already know roughly when you feel sharpest, that window is not for emails. It is not for meetings that could have been emails. It is not for scrolling, scheduling, or the gentle administrative sediment that accumulates around every job and every life. Those tasks exist to fill time. Your peak window exists to do the work that actually matters. Cal Newport, who coined the term deep work and has spent his academic career studying this, makes a distinction that I want you to tattoo somewhere metaphorical. He separates all cognitive activity into 2 categories. Shallow work, logistically manageable tasks that can be performed while distracted. Emails, Slack messages, most meetings, routine administrative tasks. Work that, when you look back on a year of it, produces very little that the world actually needed from you specifically. Deep work, cognitively demanding, high-value activity performed in a state of distraction-free concentration that pushes your abilities to the limit. The work that creates new value. The work that requires you specifically, your particular combination of knowledge and perspective, your irreplaceable brain. Most people spend their peak cognitive window on shallow work because shallow work has an urgency that deep work does not. Your inbox screams at you. Your deep work does not. It sits there quietly, important, and ignored, while you heroically respond to things that could have waited. So here is the architecture of the solution. 3 components: simple in concept, genuinely difficult in execution, and completely transformative if you actually do it. Component 1. Time blocking with biological honesty. Identify your peak window. Be honest about it, not aspirational. If you are not a morning person, do not build a system that requires you to be a morning person. That is a fantasy, and fantasies make terrible productivity systems. Schedule your single most important deep work task, just one, inside your peak window. Treat that block as a non-negotiable appointment with your own potential. Everything else fits around it. Component 2. The Shutdown Ritual. This one sounds soft. It is not soft. It is neurologically load-bearing. Researchers at Harvard found that our brains continue processing open loops, unfinished tasks, unresolved problems, things we meant to do in the background long after we've officially stopped working. This is called the Zeigarnik effect, and it is why you lie awake at 11 p.m. suddenly remembering that you forgot to reply to something. Your working memory is still holding open tabs. The shutdown ritual is the process of deliberately closing those tabs. At the end of your workday, you do a brief review. You capture every outstanding task. You make a specific plan for when each one will be handled. Then you say, and Newport is very specific about this, and it sounds slightly absurd until you understand why it works, you say out loud, "Shutdown complete." The verbalization is a signal to your brain that the loop is closed, that it can stop running the background process, that it is safe to stop. Studies on this ritual show measurable improvements in rest quality and next-day cognitive performance. Your brain, given clear permission to stop, actually stops. Component 3. The pregame protocol. Elite athletes don't walk directly from the locker room onto the field and immediately attempt their peak performance. They warm up. They have rituals that signal to the nervous system that it's time to shift modes. Your brain needs the same thing. Before your deep work block, build a consistent 5 to 10-minute ritual. Same sequence every time. It could be a specific playlist, a cup of something, a brief review of what you're about to work on and why it matters. The consistency is the point. You are training a neurological association. This sequence of actions means it's time to focus, so that eventually the ritual itself begins to trigger the state rather than the state requiring you to force it. This is how you build deep work capacity, not through grit, through engineering. Now, let's put this together. You are not someone who lacks the ability to focus. You are someone who has been handed the wrong tools and told to build a house. You've been told to fight distraction with willpower, to do deep work at random times, to outperform your own biology through sheer determination. That approach fails most people, not because they're weak, because it's bad engineering. The CEO you're aspiring to think like didn't get there by trying harder than everyone else every single day. They got there by building systems that made trying harder unnecessary. They identified when their brain performs best and protected it. They created rituals that reliably triggered focus states. They designed their environment so that the default behavior, the path of least resistance, was also the path of most productive output. That is available to you right now, today being Monday, which is exactly when this kind of decision tends to actually stick. Start with one thing, just one. Identify your peak window today and block it for tomorrow. Put one thing in it, one thing that matters, and protect it. Don't check your phone first. Don't open your email first. Open the one thing. See what happens. Because the gap between where you are and where the version of you with elite focus lives is not a gap of talent or discipline or some mysterious executive quality you were never given. It's a gap of design. And you
now have the blueprint.